Today, we celebrate our matriculations! Thus as matriculations! The Matriculations shirt. Available through Teespring, link in the description.
Shadowlist.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and as I was making my recent review of the castle from the movie The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, when I was doing my research, watching through the movie, so many unrealistic things were just kind of jumping out at me because I was watching it from a more analytical frame of mind that I felt, I should really make a commentary where I just roast these things. The thing is, though, I actually really love this movie. Prince Caspian is by far my favourite Narnia movie of the remakes. So even though I'm going to be very nitpicky and, roast as much as I can from two main battle scenes, this is to not take away from the good things of this movie. And like I said, this is actually a really good one. I enjoy it. In regards to the plot, the character development, and just the overall pace of the movie, very enjoyable. And when a movie gets those things right, even the smaller inaccuracies of the combat and stuff like that, I'm still perfectly capable of enjoying it. It would just be icing on the cake if they're able to do these things that I'm going to be pointing out better than what they did. Because you have to understand, there are movies that do a far worse job in regards to, say, battles and fight scenes. And for a Hollywood-style movie, comparing it to kind of the Hollywood standard, this is Prince Caspian, very decent, actually, quite good. It's just when you compare it to a perfectly realistic and kind of historical standard of medieval combat and things and how weapons and armor are supposed to function, of course you're going to run into a lot of inaccuracies. And if anyone is going to do that stupid argument of why are you criticizing the fact that they're not showing armor functioning correctly when you're perfectly happy with griffins and, minotaurs running around? It's fantasy, it's not supposed to be realistic. Shut up! Okay? Just shut up. That's a stupid argument. Are you saying whenever you put a fantastical element, whether it be magic or magical creatures, that the laws of physics are not supposed to apply anymore and steel is not to be as strong as steel is supposed to be in the real world? In fact, in my opinion, you want these other elements to be done as accurately and realistic as possible for the world to feel more real, even in a fantastical setting with magic and magical creatures. And so to make a world feel realistic, you obey the laws of physics within the confines of what you can with the presence of magic. So let's have some fun and get into it, and also get a copyright strike because I'm using footage from the film, even though it's perfectly fair use, and I'm doing nothing illegal, but they like to be overprotective. This is one of the unfortunate reasons why I do less movie kind of reviews like this. I got a copyright claim for using a clip from Doctor Who in my castle review of Markarth from Skyrim. And that video is still in dispute, and because of it, I have not made a single cent from the ad revenue or anything from that video ever since it was published. So yeah, the joys of using pre-existing footage for either parody or commentary or review on YouTube. It's just what you got to deal with, unfortunately. Anyway, sorry, I just had to vent. Let's get into it, alright? We'll have some fun and we'll get into this movie. So I'm wondering if these griffins would actually be able to fly when holding such a significant amount of extra weight. In my, basic understanding, I don't think they would be able to. It'd be too heavy. Like for a creature to be able to fly of this size in and of itself, with it, honestly, I don't think their wingspan is large enough. But they would have to have something like hollow bones or something like that. That would be really light in and of themselves. And so, carrying humans on top of that? I don't think so. I always kind of feel sorry for the soldiers, the expendable background henchmen and stuff like that. That guy, he probably had a wife and children and decided, I'm going to serve my king. He probably doesn't know too much about politics. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Politics, if you didn't know, I kind of butchered that word. But anyway, so yeah, I'll sign up, the militia, join, and honey, nothing's going to go wrong. I'm on the top of a tower. How could anyone on top of a tower hurt me? So don't worry, honey. It's a safe job. I'll come home and And then he gets, murdered. Slit throat by a guy in the night. Poor guy. Hashtag Henchman Lives Matter. I think this is a more prevalent thing in kind of children-ish movies, or movies that are aimed for a younger audience, because now, like, the weapons are... it's kind of, I don't know, is it the ninja mentality where if you have 1,000 ninjas, they all can't fight worth anything, but if you have one ninja, he's almost unstoppable. Well, in regards to the weapons, if you're using them against henchmen, the weapons are, I don't know, insta-kill, lethal, and the armor, it does nothing. But if you're fighting a main character, well then, the main characters, they can be hit with 10 arrows in a shot. They'll tank through it, and their armor is better and all that stuff. But the henchmen, single touch, dead. And so that was an arrow in the back, which honestly, like this armor, the armor is shown by these soldiers. It's leather, so we won't get into that. But it also looks to have metal plates, either riveted underneath or in between. But it doesn't seem to do anything, and I'm sure we're going to see more examples of that as we continue. Another insta-kill. Just like a slash across the gut. And like if they were proper metal plates under their armor, that would have done nothing, okay? Absolutely nothing. You would have to get a really strong thrust in between those plates to get through that armor. As a slash, my goodness. But not only that, say if the slash got through the armor, a gut slash wouldn't kill the person. First, it's got to get through the muscle and also fat that probably is blocking, internal organs. It wouldn't be pleasant, but it can be survivable. And even then, if it gets to internal organs in the gut, that's a slow death, okay? And so the person would still be very much capable of fighting after a slash across the gut. But, insta-kill, touch, dead, he's dropped out of it, and instantly he's gone. And so when I said I'm sure we're going to see more of it, the very next one we see it again. But I think I'm going to have to point it out every time it happens. And we'll make a code word for this unrealistic insta-killing of the weapons where armor should have, protected them. And the code word will be lightsaber. All right? So anytime we see that, I'm going to pause and say lightsaber. All right, honestly, wouldn't you have screamed this guy, in the context of the movie, a minotaur doesn't exist. It's a fantasy creature. So you turn around and you see a minotaur. I'm not sure you would remain quiet. I think his honest reaction would have been, holy crap, or alarm, or something like it would have been a louder reaction, not just a, huh? But I do find the Minotaur, going, shh, I find that funny. But I don't think his reaction is realistic. Alright, that wasn't exactly a weapon hit, so I'm not sure we can do lightsaber for that. But it does fall into the category of henchman. Gosh, that was, like a knock to the back of their head. And it didn't seem too hard. It didn't seem exactly like, it wasn't just a tap. It had a little bit of force. But that wouldn't have knocked someone out. You need something a lot harder. But, henchmen. Gosh, hit them with a feather, they fall over. Sorry, I just like that expression. It fits well. See, sometimes, little things like this, I'll pay them, give them credit for.
Yes, I'm a mouse.
Yeah. Lightsaber! Even though it didn't really go through armor, but I'm assuming that was just slit his throat instantly. Have a look at the size of that toothpick, okay? Not a lot of mass, and there's a lot of meat and gristle you'd kind of have to cut through to, kill someone instantly. You'd have to sever arteries, all right? And that little sword, and no, it's not a sword, it's a toothpick, nowhere near big enough, but, henchmen, Lightsaber! Lightsaber! But no, seriously, armor doesn't exist. Why are they even wearing it if it doesn't stop a single weapon, anything. That arrow, insta-kill. Gosh. The Metatron has actually made a whole video on this pervasive heresy in how Hollywood treats armor in movies. And it's a great video. Definitely worth a watch. Link in the description. I just want to say I love the swords in this movie. You know, so rarely in a medieval fantasy movie do you actually see swords other than the classic cruciform medieval swords. But here, we've got side swords. Like, these are legitimate side swords, people, all through the movie. Brilliant.
Put the sword down, Caspian. I don't want to do this.
We don't want you to either.
All right. How did they know Caspian went to the king, right? They knew Caspian went to try and save his tutor, and it was when he was with the tutor did he find out, or the implication that this guy actually killed his father. So then Caspian goes, did you like run into him in the hallway and say, oh, by the way, I'm just going to the king to kill him? No, there's no indication of that at all. He just goes to the king, threatening him, and then they just appear, all right? This is... They appear because plot, all right? Gosh.
What are you doing? You're supposed to be in the gatehouse. No!
Yes, exactly right. He is supposed to be in the gatehouse. You were expecting him to be in the gatehouse. So why did you come here? Were you supposed to come and kill this guy or capture him? Was that your job? Maybe I'm misunderstanding their tactics. Maybe they were actually on their way there anyway. But then how did Caspian get there first? I don't know. I'm all confused. All right. Pay attention to how he's holding the sword, okay? His palm is facing up.
This used to be a private room.
Paying attention?
What are you doing? You're supposed to be in the gatehouse.
Palm facing up.
Tonight for once, I want the truth.
Palm facing down. Magic! Sorry. I know things like this are very hard to keep track of in the editing process, so, continuity. And you don't really, notice it anyway when you're watching the film casually, but when you're looking really close.
You said your brother died in his sleep.
That was more or less.
So, yeah, have a look at how sharp this sword blade is. There's no edge on it. You can actually see the rolled edge and the rounded point. There's no tip on it. There's no tip at all. It's rounded. So, you'd think on a close-up like this, they could just... Maybe it was too dangerous. So, yeah.
Fatherless!
Caspian!
If Caspian was a henchman here, he'd be dead. Just saying. Alright, did you see those sword exchanges just between Edmund and the thing? They were hitting it air. They were aiming for each other's swords. Well, that's one of the classic Hollywood sword fighting moves, where they just cross the swords in front of each other constantly, not aim for the body. They just hit the swords. Lightsaber. Lightsaber again. Sorry, it just wasn't a convincing disarm for me. I mean, you can, disarm someone by hitting the blade hard enough if they got a loose enough grip. I don't know, it just felt like, it feels like you just let it go.
Let it go! Let it go!
So I comment and talk a bit about this, what they're doing here. So the soldiers are flooding into the Bailey. And I mentioned this in my review of the castle, that this isn't what you'd want to do, okay? If you have these walkways, instead of just sending your men to actually fight the attackers in the Bailey where they have a chance to, attack back, just use your archers from the ramparts above and shoot down. But here, by rushing into the Bailey with the soldiers, they're giving up their own defensive advantage. That centaur isn't using the most effective medieval weapon that he could have. If you're wondering what that is, well, I've got a whole video on it, don't I? Whoa, there was a couple of lightsaber moments there. I think we're about to see another one right here. Let's watch. Lightsaber! Oh, lightsaber again! Lightsaber again! Mouse lightsaber! Lightsaber. Armor doesn't exist, people. The armor. You might as well be wearing tissue paper for all the benefit it's offering these henchmen. God, did she just stab him in the gonads with an arrow? Alrighty. What? Are you kidding me? That's like... She threw an arrow. Okay, she just threw it. And she's not a big girl. She wouldn't have a lot of strength. And it was powerful enough to get through leather, armor, metal plates underneath, and instantly... Lightsaber! A henchman. Alright, this was like... So far, this is the worst offender. For the worst lightsaber moment so far. Gosh. Yeah, this is what you should have done in the first place. Lightsaber. Are you kidding me? Steel cannot chop through steel, people. Come on. Gosh. See, I like this part right here, you know? A noble sacrifice from one of the good guys, the heroes, you know? The Minotaur being totally like, oh, no, but good part, all right? And the music and the atmosphere creates emotion and tension. It's good. And a lightsaber. A centaur with an archer on their back. Some reason that strikes me as a good idea for some reason. I don't know why. Why is that a good idea? Sorry, just that expression while people are running past is like, I just feel like, you know, he's thinking, hey, guys, someone gonna help me hold up this thing? This is heavy. It's not easy. One of you can stop and help me hold it up. Like, all right, no, you can go. All right, yep, no, see ya. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say.
Give the order.
My men are still down there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the problem, you bloody idiot. So this is the other scene that I will comment on, okay? The duel between Peter, and the evil king. So, yeah, because it's interesting. First thing that I want to mention is their armor. So we see the king's armor here, and yes, indeed, it is interesting. So he has kind of a breastplate, but like half a breastplate, an upper breastplate. It does like interesting again. Breastplates don't go nearly as far down as people suppose. Okay, it actually sits right above the hips, not the waist, kind of the hips. And I hope I'm using the right terminology there. So you can actually move around, and then the fold is underneath the breastplate, and that covers the waist, and then also the pelvis area. But here, the breastplate doesn't even reach what appears to be the bottom of his rib cage. It's kind of like stuck up there. And then he has, some kind of leather jerkin underneath. And then underneath the leather jerkin, there looks to be mail. So that's 3 layers. In fact, I'm not even sure how necessary this breastplate is, because, gosh, it would be darn hard to get a sword through a thick leather kind of jerkin and then mail underneath. And yes, I've spoken a lot on the historical inaccuracies of leather armor. Look at my other videos if you want the detail on that. So there's that. And then his helmet, I don't mind. And as for the design of the pauldrons and the gauntlets, they look good. So, but the king's armor is a bit mishmashed, and there's another odd thing about the armor, and maybe we'll get to see it. His helmet a bit vulnerable around the neck area. Like that's the kind of area you would want to go for if you were fighting against this king. Right on the neck, seems to be exposed. Now, Peter's armor, in my mind, is actually a bit more historically authentic. straight up male with a decent helmet, pauldrons, gauntlets, and I think is wearing greaves, but he's also got mail on his legs, wearing mail trousers, are they? I forget. So he doesn't have as many layers as the king, and I can't see if there's any padding underneath. There should be, but still, mail is pretty darn good armor, and there's an area that Peter here is protected in, where the king is not, and we shall see what it is. Looking at the king's armor overall, yeah, so he's got greaves, he's got mail, but there's an area that is not protected at all. They're quite vulnerable, especially when he walks. It's his legs, from the knee to his thigh. That's just cloth, okay? He's got the sides of his, leather coat thing kind of protecting, but as we will see in the fight, they're open, and it's one of the areas that Peter gets a hit on him. So, yeah, in my opinion, Peter's actually more protected than the king, even though the king has actual parts of his armor that's plate. Why? Why are you jumping? Seriously. I mean, as soon as you put yourself in the air, you're in a position that you can't alter your movement or trajectory. So what if after you jump, your opponent just rushes in to holds up the shield or something and holds his sword pointed right at your chest? Very hard to dodge, okay? So jumping. Dumb move! Very stupid! Don't jump! Alright, so this is lots of things are interesting, people. I do find lots of things very interesting. Interesting, right? Yes, and this is one of those interesting things. Because it seems like in this situation, the movie is actually acknowledging that armor exists a bit. Because both of these combatants, they're wearing what I would consider heavy armor, and full mail is a type of heavy armor. And they're using swords. This makes fighting very difficult because swords cannot chop through armor, alright? And so there are very few attacks in this situation in which these swords are going to be effective. They're just clubs that don't have a lot of mass behind them at this point. So if you're really in a situation like this, in this type of combat, you would need to focus on thrusting and aiming for the few areas where the opponent would be vulnerable. And in terms of the combatants, the king has more areas that are open. He's got his legs, which he can hit, and also the sides of his helmet. Whereas on the contrast to this, Peter, he's got basically every part of his body is pretty much protected. So if the filmmakers were aware of this, which it doesn't seem like they are, their combat of this scene would be quite different, because they're kind of going about, they're swinging their swords to try and chop each other, which is utterly useless against these types of armor. Alright, so there were actually 2 hits that landed in that exchange. And they're showing armor as it would be in real life, doing nothing! Because slashing at your opponents, if they're wearing heavy armor, won't do a thing! And you also see that they're going about fighting, trying to chop each other, and showing that it's doing nothing. So it's funny. The filmmakers are aware enough to know that in real life, chopping doesn't, unless they're fighting henchmen, of course, but these aren't henchmen. So chopping anyone in armor who isn't a henchman will do nothing. So they're aware of that, but they're not figuring out that this isn't how you would fight if you were wearing this kind of armor. Again, I think that was a slash across the chest, and good. It's not a thing, just a kind of clash on metal. So I like employing bashing, because you'd kind of need to resort to some other tactics, wouldn't you? Start to try and bash blunt force trauma through the armor, and gosh, he knocks the helmet off. Alright, if you lose your helmet in a fight like this, that is bad, okay? Because Peter, he was fairly protected, and now the whole front of his face is exposed. Good to see him going for the head once the head is exposed, alright? Logic in combat! Who'd have thought? And there's the attack in the vulnerable area, right on the leg. And look, nothing but cloth there. So of course you would go for the legs. And the other mind-boggling thing is, why isn't the king of all people, why doesn't he have some type of protection for his legs? I mean, gosh. So the king went down and tried to slash at Peter's legs, where there are greaves. And I mean, I wasn't sure if that, was Peter tripping over the sword or trying to jump over the sword. But in either situation, all he would have had to have done was stand there and let the sword strike his armor, and it would have done nothing. And then he could have tried to hit the king on the head or something like that. Again, just more slashing at each other's shield and armor. Okay, trying to... he actually dislocates his arm, we find out during the respite period. So, that must have been an effective move, but I'm not sure you would actually be able to dislocate someone's arm from what we saw. Just stomping down the shield and putting it at an awkward angle. So, Peter is on the ground and immobilized. This should be very dangerous, because that's one of the ways you would actually try and defeat someone in heavy armor. Immobilize them. Instead of hitting at the armor, which does nothing, you'd want to get in close, and it would actually kind of degrade into a bit of a grappling match more often than not, where one heavily armored opponent is trying to knock the other heavily armored opponent on their butt, all right? Knock them down, and then they would jump on them, kind of, wrestling style, try and pin them, and pull out a dagger and dagger them in the face. Right in the face! That's how you would kill someone in heavy armor. So, he was just trying to hit down on him with his sword. In real life, you would jump on top of him. But no, he's just trying to hit down with his sword, which is, he's still wearing armor, even though he's on the ground. So hitting with your sword, no, it's not going to do much. And then he falls down too. And Peter doesn't press his advantage. He just stands up and lets the king get up. I do actually have to say that even though I'm ragging on this fight a lot, I actually do like this in terms of I have to compare it to other Hollywood fights, and so I can't if I do that, this is actually one of the better fights amongst Hollywood movies. The actors, they really are showing the physicality of the fight, and in that sense, they sell it, and they make it believable, and I really appreciate that. So even though they're not fighting effectively or historically accurate for the type of armor that they're wearing and things like that, I really do appreciate that at least it does feel like these are two guys going at it. Like, look at the sweat on their faces, they're struggling, they're growling at each other. This is a good fight amongst Hollywood movie fight scenes. My arm is dislocated and I'm in a lot of pain. The smile. Sorry. I like it.
I never really... Yes.
Yeah. Good thing Edmund knows how to reset a dislocated arm or shoulder or something. Because I wouldn't know how to do that. But I'm glad he does. So here, Peter decides not to take the helm. I'm only slightly divided on this, on my reaction to this, because I really do feel anyone who has a brain would know how vitally important it is to protect your head, okay? In terms of in history, the first metal piece of armor, they would get their gambits and stuff like soldiers and stuff like that, but one of the primary parts of their body that they always wore metal protection, okay, was their head. They would wear a gambit and then if the metal, bang, helmet right there, okay? Vitally important. So it strikes me as very odd that, no, I won't use my helmet. Why I'm slightly conflicted about this is because there is a small vein of truth in the sense of how hot and restrictive it can be while wearing a helmet like this. And these guys have been fighting and going at it, and so if it was getting so hot and hard to breathe to the point where he felt like he wouldn't be able to fight effectively anymore, he was so knackered and he just needed some air, I guess I could kind of concede that maybe you would, but still, like, there's that vulnerability. So hard for me to kind of, I think I should comment on the King's Shield here. because it's quite small for a round shield, not nearly as big as the kind of Danish shields or even just shields of the early medieval period, but it is also center grip, which is what I find kind of odd, yet not exactly, because shields of this size did exist in the medieval period, and even after the early medieval period. There's the Taj, and then there's the Rotella. I believe those are both strapped-on shields. Like, when a round shield is about this small, it's generally strapped on, but it's using center grip, which, I don't think is inaccurate, because when you're on foot, having a center grip shield is brilliant. So he's almost kind of using it like a really, really big buckler. And, hey, why not? Okay, so I don't think I can really complain about it. And I might even give it maybe, a point. I'll give it credit. Of course, the other question is, with these guys wearing so much armor, do they even really need the shields? I actually don't think they really do, because especially against swords, right? The only time you would want to have a heater shield or a shield like the king is using when you're wearing heavy armor is if you know your opponent is using weaponry that can still harm you in your armor. And so you would want the shield to protect you against like maces, okay? Or pole axes or halberds or just normal axes as well. But against a sword that you can be pretty confident that is not going to get through your armor, it makes the necessity of a shield not even there, which would open up the freedom to use two-handed weapons, like a two-handed sword. And so in terms of the weapons these guys are picking, yeah, I think a two-handed sword would be far better in terms of their opponent, who they're fighting, than using a sword and shield. Alright, according to this fight, looking at it outside of the context of the plot, Peter should have died right here. That sword strike from the king came right in when Peter had no defense. His shield wasn't raised protecting his head, his arm was lowered to the side, and the sword goes swinging right past his head. Now, it seems like the king was actively aiming for Peter's hand, which is ridiculous because why would you aim for the hand when the head is right there open? If the king had any brains at all, he just needed to move that sword strike, 10, 20 centimeters to his right, and Peter's head would have been cleft right down the middle. But instead of actually going for the part on your opponent that would win you the fight and kill them, he strikes at Peter's sword hand. I mean, really? And yes, this is a fight scene. They just want to get the, blows swinging back and forth. But this is a massive fail on both, combatant sides. Peter for not having any proper defense, and the king for not striking where he needs to strike. And it was either intentionally missed or he's just a horrible aim. But they are doing a bit of shield bashing, try and knock each other off balance. So, okay, yeah, shield bashing, it can work. More shield bashing. Shield to the face! To the face! That didn't seem to faze him very much. He's back in the game already. Ooh, he's aiming for the head. Good on him, alright? Aim for the vulnerable area. See, the king had to duck it then. He ducked it because he wasn't holding his shield high enough to protect his head. I mean, if you're using a shield, okay, and look, even here what Peter's doing, right? He's swinging, and as he swings, he's throwing his shield back behind him. All right, if you're going to have I mentioned before, shield not really the most effective weapon to pick in my opinion, but if you're going to even have the shield, and you do have a vulnerable area now because they're not wearing your helmets, use it, all right? Use the shield to protect yourself. Keep it forward and protect your head. Don't swing the shield behind you and lower your defense when you try and attack him. He just spun backwards. Ah, gosh. One of the famous. Now, I will admit that I think there are some circumstances where a spin might be useful. Not many, all right? And I don't think this was one of them. And in fact, when he put his back to good old Pete, right? Peter could have just rushed him and wrestled him to the ground because his defense was completely down. No weapon forward facing, no shield or anything. But anyway, he spins around to try and do another shield bash. And does it knock Peter down? Alright. Oh, it did. It knocked him into a pillar. And is down. Does he press his advantage? No, he just slashes again. Okay, alright. If your opponent is down, that's when you want to pin him and get on top of him. But no, he's just slashing. And good old Pete right here, he kind of does a breakdancing leg flip trip move. It's making like there would be nowhere near enough force behind that kick to knock out someone's footing from underneath them. You see, when you're standing up, you have all your weight pressing down on your feet, which creates a lot of friction between the soles of your feet and the ground. And so for someone to knock your feet with enough force to overcome the friction to actually sweep out your legs from underneath you, because this wasn't his upper center of gravity being knocked to a position where it's off balance and then he falls over. This was his feet legitimately getting kicked out from underneath him. That takes massive force. And there was not enough force behind his breakdance move here to do that to the king. But, it's a movie, so... Plot or fight scene! And now he's slashing at the king. So it's not working, guys! You're wearing armor! Alrighty, so there was another slash at the armor. He caught it, and he performed a disarm! Disarm! Alright. Good stuff. Wait. Did he just strike with the cross guard? Hold on a second. We need to go back and check that. Okay, so he's got his sword. And now he's holding the king's sword by the blade. And he goes and strikes him with the crossguard! Oh! Sorry. I don't think I've ever seen that in a movie. Maybe I just have a bad memory. But I think this is one of the few, murder strokes I've ever seen in a movie. And, that's one of the other things you would do. Heavy armor, okay, and you're only using a sword. The blade is almost useless against opponent armor. So one of the effective things you could do is grab your sword by the blade and hit with the crossguard. Mordhau! Murder strike, people! And there's that. But gee, it happens so fast, you barely see it. Look. And the king just got smacked in the face with a crossguard and is still standing. And then Pete drops the king's sword and is going up for a big hit. Big slash down, aiming for the head. Blocked by the shield. So, yeah, this is is given up on technique and is just going berserk. I shall bash at you as much as I can until something happens. Oh, good disarm by the king. He grapples the blade underneath his arm, and he has plenty of armor to be able to do that. Okay? When you're wearing armor, of course you can grapple sword blades. You're not going to get cut. The king does it, disarms Pete. Good move there. Good move. Alright. They have shown that the king's shield is a center grip. It is not strapped to his arm. So why is he holding on to it and letting his arm get twisted but behind his back? Just let go of your shield! What's going on here? Alright, so he does let go, but after he allows his full arm to get twisted behind him, for some reason. Sorry, I just feel sorry for the sword blade getting smashed up against rock. Poor sword. Oh, all right. Peter is blocking with his armor now. Sorry, it's just funny because they've, completely ignored the very concept of what armor is and what it does. The whole movie, yet here in this fight scene, they're like, armor exists. And to the point where they're like, here, he's blocking with his gauntlets, clearly showing that a sword will do nothing against armor. So it's good to see, yet of course doesn't fit in with how they've treated armor all in the rest of the movie. So he punches the king in his cut. I don't know. I haven't had a wound in my leg to be able to really comment on this. I suspect that, it didn't look like a strong hit, like a medium hit into the wound. So I just don't think that would have hurt the king nearly as much as they're kind of showing here. Gosh, I mean, he's acting like he was just stabbed in the leg, all right, or in an artery in his leg. You got slapped on your cut, mate, all right? Surely it wouldn't incapacitate you to this level.
Now's not the time for chivalry, Peter.
And there we go. The fight is basically over, though there is one last part that I will comment on. So we'll get there and then I'll wrap it up.
Look out! Yeah!
So yeah, he wasn't even aiming for him. Like Pete, he didn't need to move at all, and that sword strike would have missed. But movies, right? Alright, he went for a thrust, okay? And so, look, yeah, maybe you do want to be careful with thrusts against mail. In my opinion, they're very hard to get through. In terms of the strength that looked to be behind that strike, I don't think Pete would have had to worry too much. He could have just stood there. But for the off chance, I don't blame him for being defensive. So, Org, he grabs the blade, right? And just with his gloves, right on the blade. Love that, okay? Disarms the king. And now we are about to see one and only times in this whole fight where armor now doesn't exist. So, because he stabs him right through the chest, okay? And remember what was supposed to be... So, it's underneath the breastplate, but there was supposed to be a leather jerkin-y thing with metal plates there, and what looks to be mail. Now, the mail could be an arming doublet, which only has mail on the arms, but he has, like, this weird mail loincloth thing hanging down in front of his groin, which seems to indicate that he has a full mail hauberk underneath. And this thrust, I don't think it would have gone through the mail, okay? Not nearly to the level that they're showing.
What's the matter, boy? Too cowardly to take a life.
And there we go. So, yeah, well, when going through this movie again for the Castle review, yeah, I just had to share my thoughts on everything else, the fighting and stuff, because I do like this movie, okay? So I rag on it because I love it, in a weird way. Thanks for watching, guys. I've enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed as well. And I hope to see you again. So until next time, I will have fun dealing with the stupid copyright claims on this video. Farewell.